Golf Central on YouTube, brought to you by the Chrome Soft Golf Ball from Callaway.
Second round of the Wells Fargo from Charlotte, North Carolina. Quail Hollow Golf Club and Rory McIlroy had to fight just to make the cut on the number. This at a tournament he's won 3 times, just did not have his best stuff, certainly off the tee. And he has played the par 5s poorly, 2 over in 6 attempts over the 2 rounds. Contrast that with one of the co-leaders, Tyrrell Hatton, who's at 8 under par. Tyrrell played the par 5s in 4 under par just today. Now some of those who did not make the cut on this Friday afternoon. And this is a designated event with a big purse. Sam Burns, who won the match play, Jason Day, who won this tournament back in 2018, Colin Morikawa, and Jordan Spieth, who just was all out of sorts today. Round of 77 for Jordan Spieth. Rich Lerner alongside Brandel Chamblee. And so we had a little bit of Friday afternoon drama, and this is kind of the argument against the no-cut designated events that are being proposed and are likely to take hold next year. What do you think?
Well, look, you were talking earlier about how dogmatic Tiger, Jack Nicklaus, and I believe even Rory McIlroy are to preserve the cut, because it does sort of preserve this Friday afternoon drama that you enjoyed today, and I enjoyed it as well, and I'm sure a lot of people did. I would say that the pushback to that is we're in a new era of golf where we're asking sponsors to go to the hip for 2025, and it will increase to $30-35 million, I have no doubt. And I'm not sure that the ratings will justify that, such that they won't need to bring in venture capital to support that. That remains to be seen. We'll see how that plays out. But if you're one of those sponsors, and the likelihood of a John Rahm or a Justin Thomas or a Jordan Spieth or a Rory McIlroy is on the cusp of missing a cut, you'd probably be a little disappointed that they're not going to be around for Saturday, Sunday. What would that mean to your gate? What would that mean to early round coverage finishing up? Certainly, if I was one of those sponsors, I would be pushing for no cut so that I can keep the stars around.
To what extent do you think this may have been motivated by Live Golf, the PGA Tour trying to keep its stars happy and flush with money, and then as well, running the risk of looking like Live with no-cut events?
Yeah, the first part, the unintended consequences of this are that they've had to cede more power to the greatest players in the game. I think that's sort of a precarious position to be in. If you're running a professional golf tour, it is their job to play great golf. It is the PGA Tour to figure out how best to run the best tournaments in the world, and those two do not easily align. If you concede all these points to the best players in the world, I think you're doing a disservice to the membership in general. And perhaps in this particular case, you're doing a disservice to the viewers. I would argue that this is the no-cut aspect. You would say, okay, Live has a no-cut aspect. Look, Live's not the first tournament to have no cuts. The WGCs didn't have no cuts. The Tour Championship doesn't have a cut. The Tournament of Champions doesn't have a cut. Of the 142 cuts in a row that Tiger Woods made, a substantial number of them didn't even have a cut. How is the PGA Tour different from Live? For the first part of these designated events, there's a way to play your way into them. There's a way to play your way out of them. There's a way to qualify for the PGA Tour. There's ascendancy and descendancy on the PGA Tour. They have a qualifying process for the PGA Tour. None of that's true at Live. They all start at the same time. There's just 48 players that play 54 events. It doesn't look anything like the PGA Tour. And while I'm at it, I mean, let's just take a shot at what's going on here as I hear this pushback about world rankings. If you're starting a tour, okay, if you wanted to start a professional golf tour, and you wanted to do everything in your power to make sure that this tour was legitimate, I would think that trying to garner world ranking points for your players would factor into it, to show you just how little I imagine those who put the Live Tour together understood about the world rankings. What would you have done? What would it have taken? Just a quick Google search of the qualifications for world ranking points? Well, what do they need to do? You have to have a qualifying process for your tour. You have to have a substantial number of players, certainly more than 48. You have to play 72 holes. and on it goes. Well, none of those did they endeavor to meet. And so for players to defect to a tour that they knew when they were going to it didn't meet any of those criteria, and now to be whining about the fact that they're not gaining world ranking points is just another case of how narcissistic the defectors have proven to be, and most poignantly, the most vocal of those, Phil Mickelson.
They're suggesting that the official world golf ranking body needs to adjust to live, not the other way around.
Yeah, you want to talk about how backwards that is and how spoiled and narcissistic those comments are. How about adjusting your makeup of your tour? Because again, the qualification process is have a way to play your way onto it. There is no way to play your way onto it. They just pluck stars out of the thin blue air that they can convince with a load of money, and have a cut and have a substantial number of players, et cetera, et cetera. So they could easily change the format of their tournaments to in a year or 2 or 3, depending upon the period of time that the World Golf Rankings has to assess the legitimacy of the tour. It would be, I'd say, far easier for them to bend to the qualifications of the World Golf Tour or the World Golf Rankings than the other way around.
As long as you open this door, we learned earlier this week that some of the Ryder Cup stalwarts on the European side for the last 20 years, Garcia, Poulter, Lee Westwood, will be shut out of future Ryder Cups. They won't even become captains, and probably all 3 likely would have been, given how much they meant to and how much they contributed to Europe's success. They're snapping back. What's your take on all that?
Well, you would imagine that they would have made more than $1 million. I think it was £1 million that they were likely going to have to pay to maintain their membership on the European Tour if it indeed mattered that much to them, and they were all paid substantially more than £1 million to go to live. If it indeed did matter that much to them, they would have anteed up, paid the fine. They knew the consequences of their defections to live tour in advance. They thought that they could sort of have their cake and eat it too. They could defect, then sue for the right to play the tour whose rules they were breaking. And then when they were confronted with the consequences of their actions, they said, no, we're not going to pay the fines. We're going to go carry on doing what they're doing, which is what they should have done in the first place.
Westwood has said that, in his estimation, there's no difference between playing the European DP World Tour and the Saudi Tour, and as they did for many years, playing the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour. Other than the fact that it's funded by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and he doesn't understand why there's that distinction.
Other than the fact that it's funded by a murderous dictator? So you would just say that, other than the fact that John Gotti is my boss, there's no difference between, 2 people that are washing windows.
And Brandel, I know they will say, Greg Norman and Mickelson and those players, that it's additive. But the truth is, they would have, if they were successful, they would have taken down the PGA Tour. They wanted Tiger. There was an offer out there. They wanted Rory McIlroy. They could have wrecked the PGA Tour.
They wanted it, and they thought that they were going to get it. Thank goodness, and not enough is said about the moral compass of players like Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, John Rahm, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, and on we could go. Thank goodness we had players like that in leadership on the PGA Tour.
And PGA Tour marches on with the designated event, Wells Fargo, pregame noon Eastern Saturday on Golf Channel.